We're ready. We will call to order the regular board meeting of the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners. Good morning. My name is Maricel Hernandez.
No, it's on. There you go.
My name is Maricel Hernandez. I'm the chair, and with me today is Commissioner June Brown
Present.
and Commissioner William Cressy.
Present.
Next item is the consideration of the agenda. Any proposed changes? If not, we will proceed with the approval of the regular board meeting minutes of September 24th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved by Commissioner Cressy.
Seconded by Commissioner Brown.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next, we have a report from our Executive Director, Mr. Holliday. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioner Brown, and Commissioner Cressy. We continue to hold our post-election staff meetings this past week with managers and departments discussing how the November 5th election went and how we can continue to improve our internal processes moving forward. Once we've done, we will provide a report to the commissioners. The City of Chicago approved the 2025 budget. We're just waiting for confirmation from Office of Budget Management that our budget was approved without any amendments. I made a call this morning as well as last week. I haven't heard anything from them yet. The board will be, well, our office will be closed for Christmas, December 25th, and New Year's Day, January 1st. This past week, we met with NetWoven about the procurement and contract software, and we were given the needed information for us to move forward with our contract portion of that. There were contracts already built into it, well, uploaded to it, but the two administrators here that need to do that now, they didn't have the administrative authority, so it was given to them, so those contracts will be uploaded. So this ends my report.
Any questions?
Is that a completion on that, Walter? I'm not understanding.
No.
Yeah.
The NetWoven?
Because I thought it
system
was available to us earlier.
It should be. Login is an issue. It's been up and running. Procurement Office and Finance Office have been using it for a few months, but we've got the contract that was recently approved for ongoing maintenance and support, but also for enhancements. So, as they said at the beginning of the meeting, now that we've driven around the block for a while and kicked the tires, we've got some enhancements for them to make. There are a couple aspects that wasn't functioning, like the alarm system, not alarm, but
Reminder.
system of reaching expiration contracts and so forth. So we're working on that. Chris Sheehy had been uploading some contracts, but apparently she was the only one with the authority within the user accounts for that. So they told them to add procurement and finance to that.
If you all could have someone give me access.
And I just have a question when you, Mr. Holliday, when you mentioned you meetings with management or staff about post-election. Is that what Mrs. Spera has been doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
The two of us. I've been attending the meetings as well.
You've been attending the minutes? as well?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So can you, you or Mrs. Spera explain a little bit more better where you're at and what's happening?
Well, so after our meetings last week, Sandra and I, we will sit down and go over the pros and cons, what worked, what didn't work. And then we're going to circle back if there's additional questions to those departments to get any additional information. But right now, like I said, on Friday, that's when we finished up our meetings. So
This past
just
Friday?
past Friday,
Okay.
yes. So
Okay.
we'll be circling back in the event there is
Questions?
more questions that we have. And then that way, when we give our report to you, to the commissioners, that you will have a full report of what was done and what's going to be done moving forward.
Oh, on the budget approval, the city, now, have we received approval from the county as well?
I believe so. Our county budget, there was no issues with it. They didn't even call us in for a meeting.
Can we confirm that so we'll know where we are?
Yes, I will confirm with the finance department that our county budget is approved. We haven't heard, at this point, we haven't heard otherwise, and I haven't been informed that it wasn't.
Okay.
And when do you think we can get a confirmation on the city budget?
Well, I'll call them again once I get out of this meeting. I may have to call Sandra Blakemore, who is the director over that office, because our contacts I haven't heard anything from. So I'll give her a call, as
Okay.
well as I'll email her and give her a call.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
And then please let us know what you find.
I sure will.
Executive Director, this is Max Weber, but the Cook County Board did unanimously approve the budget on November 21st, and our budget was approved with no incident.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, and if somebody has a copy of the city budget somewhere.
Yes, I'm looking into
I
getting a
know.
digital copy so I can forward to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Does
I would be-
finance have that? Don't they have
Well,
that?
I mean, we have our budget, but the full city budget hasn't been,
It hadn't been
that's what,
posted?
pardon me?
It hadn't been posted?
Well, it had not been posted a couple of weeks ago when I last looked, but I haven't looked in a couple of weeks, so it might
It
be.
may not be because there have been some delays.
Mhm.
I do recall receiving an email from the city regarding our approved salaries. I'm not sure if the whole budget is on there, but I do remember, or I do recall seeing an email about salaries or budget being approved.
Mhm.
It was sent to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holliday. Now we'll go to Mrs. Spera.
Good morning, Madam
morning.
Chair. Good morning, Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Cressy. I attended the initial meeting with CDW Netwoven for contracts and procurement last week. The next scheduled meeting is tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. I am collaborating with Finance and Purchasing Departments to ensure that we are in the best place possible for fiscal year 2024. As the Executive Director mentioned, I've completed the post-election meetings with all department staff individually. I have scheduled the initial staff meeting for the new year, and that meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, January 8th. And that concludes my report.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. And if there are no questions, we will move on with Mr. Better.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
We have an update this week right before the holidays, but we have our November 5th presidential election turnout by age and gender.
All right.
And we'll be releasing some graphics and information. I'm very happy to confirm that our highest voting age group was still 25 to 34-year-olds. They cast 224,967 ballots. That was over 22% of all total ballots cast. And 66% of all registered voters aged 25 to 34 voted in this election. The next group underneath that was 35 to 44 with 187,000 ballots cast, just over 18% of total ballots. And it was 31-year-olds that cast the most ballots overall. So again, this seems we have bucked some more of the national trends when it came to more of our voters in younger voters showing up to vote, and so that was great to see. Also, as per the usual, women cast most ballots in Chicago with over 565,000 ballots cast, with over 55% of total ballots cast for the entire election. And it was over 70% of all female registered voters turned out to vote, so very high rate of voting there. We also took a look at the top 5 ward voter turnout for the November 5th election. No surprise, given some of the lines we saw at the Merlot Library site, but the 44th Ward had an astounding over 96% of their registered voters turn out to vote.
Wow.
43rd Ward was underneath that at 90%, 47th Ward at 89.79%, 34th Ward is 4th place with 88.53%, and 32nd Ward at 87.46%. So I think we can see with those wards, especially the wards that were very popular with early voting, they were also very popular with vote by mail and on election day. So very, very consistent vote getters, those wards for the November election. We continue to plan for the voter forum on April 5th. I am working on a draft agenda and voter survey that I will share for feedback with the exec director, assistant exec director, and our staff. Looking forward to sharing that with the commissioners for any feedback, hopefully by the first week of January or early January to take a look at that. Once we get past the holidays, I will continue to have conversations with our community organizations and our groups to discuss what panel presentations and panel discussions. We, again, are looking to make this very interactive. This is not going to be a 5-hour lecture. So we are building this agenda, and we'll get what that looks like to you soon for your additional feedback. Other than that, we are clearing the rest of the plate from November 5th election so we can head into the new year.
Great. When you get the list of community organizations you're going to notify about the community forum, can you send them to the 3 of us? Because we might think of additional groups that should be included. Okay?
Certainly. Yeah, I think of this as 2 different tiers of groups that we actively work with that can be involved and share their feedback and their thoughts and what voting looks like moving forward in the next few election cycles. And then there's our invites, which should be as broad as possible. And so once all that gets together, I'll get that over to the commissioners for additional feedback. Really want to make this a collaborative agenda.
Okay, great.
When you include that information, could you send us what the budget is for this and who's on the team from here internally?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
2 quick things. First of all, I think your planning is good. As a professor, I just have to say there's nothing wrong with a 5-hour lecture. Okay. Having done many myself. Also, your statistics on voter turnout. I think one of the things, and maybe we can talk about this, there were actually some precincts that had over 100% turnout based on their pre-election numbers. And number 1 is a precinct that just happens to be the University of Chicago. And I think also some of those wards in the 44th, et cetera, are contiguous with some of our major universities. So I think we had a lot of same-day registrations from college students. I know the universities around the country were having a competition, especially here, as to who they could get, the most to turn out. UIC, by the way, won my graduate school. But I'd like to talk to you. Maybe can we get age as to precinct turnout as well?
We do, and we'll be releasing that information.
Okay, because that could tell us if these are, in fact, the college students
Yes.
showing up and registering the day of voting and voting in.
Yep.
Okay.
So on top of our citywide statistics, we also do have voter turnout by age and gender by ward and by precinct all the way down.
Excellent.
We'll make this information available on the website either later today or in the very near future. I'll make sure to email that around. But I'm glad that you brought that up, Commissioner. This is always a question that comes especially for popular presidential elections.
Right.
Same-day registration was very popular
Right.
for this election. It continues to be popular in the city of Chicago. and certainly was the case for a lot of our college campuses.
Yeah, I recall, I think 4 years ago, we had the same thing with the University of Chicago with this over 100%, but it's the same day registrations coming in.
Mhm.
That is, and they had their 3 days of early voting on
well.
site at University of Chicago, which had very good turnout. It was the highest turnout of our university partners.
Well, it's good to see, well, again, being a professor, good to seeing the college students showing up and voting. So, very good. Thank you.
Can we, I think that that's great, and can we do a letter to the newspaper? The university, the Maroon,
Hmm.
the University of Chicago, have them, see if they could print it. I think I'd like to acknowledge the vote, not only at U of C, but at each of the other universities, and let them know how they did.
Hmm.
And may I say also a letter, maybe from you, Madam Chair, to the university presidents.
Yeah.
I think they would really like to see
I
that.
think that would be a great idea. And we can get that out in the beginning of January.
Certainly. I'd be happy to work with the early voting team. We'll pull the information and we'll draft some letters to
Yeah.
the universities, their presidents, and, I think a letter to the editor thanking students for coming out on behalf of the board would be a great idea too.
Yeah, okay,
Excellent. Thank
okay.
you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? If not, we will, oh, is that it for your?
That is.
Okay,
you.
okay, thank you. Next, we'll proceed with old business, infrastructure projects and changes in election administration, including electronic poll books and voting equipment. Do we have a status report on that? Is there anything going on?
Well, at this point, nothing to report, but the electronic poll books are back in the warehouse, and the staff is going through the regular maintenance of those.
Okay, okay, thank you. And there is nothing on legislation because they're not in, the legislature is not in session.
Correct, and as previously discussed, we're meeting in January with legislative liaison with AECOI, and then nailing down our mutual agendas, and then we'll reach out to the County Clerks Association as well
Okay,
Okay.
when is that?
in January. Did I say
Okay.
July?
It should be as early as possible in January because the legislative session begins in early January.
No.
And if we want a bill introduced, it has to be early on.
Okay.
Okay. New business, we have 2 items. The first is a contract service agreement with Lionscoff for election administration and legislative consulting. And let's see, who will speak to this? Mr. Lasker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a continuation of Mr. Goff's consulting contract. All of the terms would remain the same as the previous contract, so that would be $80 per hour, not to exceed $100,000 over the term of the agreement, with the durational term beginning New Year's Day, January 1st, and going through December 31st.
Is, mhm. If there's no questions or comments, is there a motion to approve a professional services agreement with Lionscoff for election administration and legislative consulting at the rate of $80 per hour, not to exceed $100,000 over the term of the agreement, which shall commence on January 1st, 2025 and continue through December 31st, 2025? Is there a motion?
Well, continuing through what was last date on that?
December 31st.
Oh, okay, very good. Yes, in that case, so moved. Commissioner Cressy.
Seconded, Commissioner Brown.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. The second is a contract with Larry Hansen LLC for GIS mapping and redistricting services. And here we have, well, I'll start with you, Mr. Lasker, and you can bring in whoever you'd like.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do have several more redistricting and GIS mapping related projects in 2025 as preparation for 2026. So in the office, in the meeting room here today, we have Rick Thurman, who's an assistant manager, the assistant manager of the Districts and Boundaries Department. He can talk with you in great detail about the ongoing projects and the newer projects for 2025. And then also present is Larry Hansen, who's been working with us with the board since 2022 when those 2020 census stats came out. I don't know if Mr. Holliday, if you have anything to add, but I don't know, if Mr. Thurman, if you want to step up and explain the
So-
projects.
I just have to add, Madam Chair, as the PSA is written, for Mr. Hanson, I just to say his service that he has given us is exceptional, and the completing of the training of the staff of districts and boundary is really a must. So we can continue developing our structure necessary to manage the board's geographic information system, ensuring data structures are complete with integration and upgrade opportunities with the board's voter registration system. So there is some more training that staff has to get done that wasn't done because of the closeness of the elections, coming out of one election, moving into another election. Larry was very exceptional with our redistriction process after the 2020 census.
And I also meant to add, if I may, that from a sort of a legal technicality standpoint, we're doing a short-term professional services agreement today to keep Mr. Hansen active on the current projects he's working on. Through the RFP that was issued in 2022, the board received bids, and Mr. Hansen, was awarded that contract. There have been 2 extensions that the board has granted. Those are the only 2 extensions that were included in the RFP contract. So in the meantime, this will also go back to the procurement department for it to make a determination as to how to round things out for the remainder of the 2025 year as prep for the 2026 election.
Okay.
That'll be ongoing as well.
Okay. Mr. Thurman, how are you?
Good morning, Commissioners. If it helps, I don't have a map, but I do have
Thank
a
you.
colorful
Well,
timeline
thank you.
that might
I like
help to
paper.
kind of take a look at as the last couple of years and the next upcoming year. It just shows some of the major events on a monthly basis. Sometimes the months mentioned may have to be taken with a bit of a grain of salt on our projects and events, but it gives a general sense of what the flow of events has been over the last 3 years and what we expect for next year. In green, those months that I highlighted in green are election months, and of course that means that any activity, map making and whatnot, you can color in the previous several months before that as the preparation for that. The bright yellow months are other things such as redistricting activities and events. Or the rolling out of some of the new apps that we have on our enterprise server. That was one of the big projects that we've been doing and that Larry has been really central to over the last year or so. The pastel yellow is the period that we're talking about for a interim PSA. And the red months are simply other events that sort of impacted what we were doing and we had to take care of. Whether or not they were central to the contract, they were simply, central to what we were doing in districts and boundaries in general. The main thing that we probably would want to show is that we have in fact been getting quite a bit done in addition to the elections themselves. With the 2023 and 2024, we managed to, when I say we, really Larry at this point, worked with ArcGIS, with Esri, the ArcGIS vendor, to get the server internally up and running, and to get several apps developed and on that. In September of 2023, roughly, that was the time whenever we started editing and maintaining a more detailed database for our addresses so that we'd have a better sense of where voters really truly are and that they are in fact at valid residential addresses. So that was our first enterprise app that we developed and used strictly within the districts and boundaries. In 2024, we then had an integration of that validation, address validation app with our VRXG, with our voter registration system, so that we could automate the updating of the address file, so that we've got rid of a fair amount of manual work. And that is the sort of thing that we are trying to do with all of this, is to automate as much as we can some manual processes. And then the third, in September of this year, our third set of apps, that was really two apps that we've rolled out, mainly just in the registration department, but they can go really anywhere in the board, where we have one rather helpful application that you type in an address anywhere in this state of Illinois, and it tells you, is it inside the city of Chicago? If it isn't, it says where it is and what county clerk or election commission that voter application in front of you should go to. So that that helps to cut down a bit on the work and of getting every voter application that comes in the door to the right authority who can take care of it. We also have another, what I've called here the All Layers Districts app, that simply takes a lot of the apps that are, the layers that we used for mapping throughout the every map you can think of that we have on our website, and a few that aren't yet. And we place them there, and a user can turn on or turn off the layers that they care about, so they can make their own map as they go, an interactive mapping application. So we've mainly just rolled that out in registration, simply because we didn't have time to get it out to more people. And but we've had pretty good response. Quite a few folks like it quite a bit. And if we get a chance to roll that out here in the next month or so to the rest of the board, I'd like to see what we could, hopefully they can give us some feedback as to how we could either alter that or maybe make a more focused set of applications. These are just a couple of examples of what has been developed so far, and an indication of what we hope to continue to do to help move things towards interactive, self-managed mapping for more people in the office. In 2025, the first several months, the biggest project that we're going to be heading into is looking at the voting history, as Max covered, and see what we can do to optimize the precincts. We've done a little bit of rough looking at that, and we know that we have some precincts that are very low population and probably could stand to be consolidated. We also found that there's a few precincts that are actually above 1,800 voters registered there, and we might need to dial that back and actually make a few of our precincts smaller. So it will go both ways, but we hope to get get a better sense of exactly how we can follow the trends with vote by mail and early voting to make sure that we are balancing out the workload for our election judge staffs on election day, and at the same time still making sure that every voter has a place to go that's convenient and accessible. We'll also hopefully be taking a look at with the polling place data from the ADA and the polling place division to make sure that we can optimize the use of ADA compliant poll sites as well. when we get into this in 2025. Those are some of the main things that we look at doing. As far as how we get that done, one of the things I'm really hoping we can do, we've kept Larry pretty busy. And as he said, he's helped us out when we were shorthanded and really needed to get things done both outside of our districts and boundaries office and at the same time get maps that are needed every single election that need to be updated. We've done that. In this next year, I am really hoping that we can make sure that Larry makes as few maps as possible, and his hands don't have to touch the keyboard, and that instead he'll be advising us how to do some of these applications and maps that he has done. We did a lot of our classic maps, the ones that we print out and make from a PDF. The staff has done quite a few of those. We haven't got into the interactive maps, and I would like to see if we should be able to take that on. And in this case, I think he could help us develop those so that we can say that we know what we're doing when we make an interactive map. They tend to be a little more complicated under the hood than a paper map. It's not obvious until you get into it, but yeah, they can be a little bit more complex. We also will have this precinct optimization, and the last time around in 2022, he really kind of spearheaded a lot of that and dealing with the aldermen and whatnot. We would like to see if we can get more involved with that as well and take care of that in this next cycle as well. Is there any questions? I don't want to be the 5-hour lecturer here, so.
How big is your department?
Well, when I started, there were about 5 full-time employees, but several left. And so at the moment, there's 3 full-time employees, as well as Mr. Hanson. We actually would like to see if we can get one more person in there. We do have 5 licenses for 5 computers that are workstations that are in the office. So we just basically have a desk that's sitting there and waiting for someone to fill it back up again. Because that was how many we had in the, traditionally.
What do you look for in terms of a full-time employee? What kind of qualifications?
Well, not too many people have specific GIS training. Mapping is usually a lot of data, being able to think with numbers, be comfortable with numbers and computers, but also artwork and graphics at the same time. It also helps to have a clue as to what on earth all those colors and numbers mean. So if they have some experience within the board with actual elections, that would be helpful. I suppose somebody who's fairly flexible, and if you've got somebody who's comfortable with sort of like liberal arts stuff and scientific computer science stuff at the same time, that's kind of the ideal. It doesn't always show up on the resume right away. It didn't in mine. So you just basically have to kind of look around and talk to people and find out what kind of interesting things they've done in the past. I do know there have been a couple of people who are engaged elsewhere and busy at their jobs who have had some GIS experience in college and whatnot on the board now. But we'll work with anybody, really.
Does the military have people that have backgrounds in cartography that might be helpful in something like this?
Probably.
Yeah, I'm just thinking off the top of my head.
Sure.
I just want to thank you and both of you and all of your people for consistently making us look good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have had the pleasure of speaking around the country to different groups, and when I tell them how many precincts we have in Chicago and how many ballot forms we need because of all the overlaying jurisdictions, they are completely blown away. Spoke to the Montreal Bar Association, and they get one little tiny ballot, that's all they need, and they're just blown away by it. And I know down in Arizona, this last election, big brouhaha in one of the counties because after voting started, they realized they had drawn the map wrong. And they had to stop voting and try to print up new ballots and the whole thing, and it blew up. And I remember reading the story and thinking, that's something I don't have to worry about here because we got this crack staff on our hands here. So thank you again for consistently making us look good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Mr. Holliday, what are your plans for, if this contract is through April 30th? What's the plan here?
Well, I've already talked to Jim Carley, who is the manager of that department, about looking in his department and finding someone with those skills to help out in district boundaries. And then after the April, if the RFP is issued to continue to have Mr. Hanson train and help the staff enhance that. So once there is no contract, they will be able to move forward and do those things on their own.
Okay, but I think Mr. Thurman just said that he will be needed after April.
Well,
So-
after April, if the RFP will, as I stated, the RFP will be put out.
Okay, but but shouldn't the RFP be out before the contract expiration?
The purchasing department is working on that now. They're working on that now. We wanted to secure a contract for the 4 months, but they're working on the RFP at this moment so that it can go further.
It's been submitted as a sole source request, and so I am working with the procurement department to just analyze the issues to see that it qualifies as a sole source. The reason being that Mr. Hanson has created these systems and is familiar with the projects and is, 3/4 of the way through with the projects. So at that point, I mean, it certainly is the plan that whether it's the RFP or a sole source, that contract will be prepared and ready for approval before the current PSA ends in April.
Okay, that's what I want to,
Yeah.
I don't want any gaps because if
Yeah, no,
there's some continuity, something that's going on, I don't want to have to stop and,
So
Yep, no, that's definitely the plan. We're
Okay.
on timeline for that.
okay. Is there any other questions, comments? Okay. Is there a motion to approve a professional services agreement with Larry Hansen LLC for GIS mapping and redistricting services at the rate of $150 per hour, not to exceed $100,000 over the term of the agreement, which shall commence on January 1st, 2025 and continue through April 30th, 2025?
So moved, Commissioner Brown.
Seconded by Commissioner Cressy.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
And Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next is a legal report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No major developments in the legal world for the board, which is usually good news. No news is good news. I have reached an agreement, as we've been discussed a little while ago, reached an agreement and a conflicts check with Ryder Burns Law Firm to serve as ethics counsel for the board. So I'm starting to talk with them about the actual scope of services. So I'm going to follow up with the three of you to have you submit any individual ideas that you have. It's going to be rather general in a lot of respects, so that there's, that they've got a lot of authority to work in various ways for the board as ethics counsel, but also quite specific in others in regards to allowing employees to, raise concerns and
I'm
serving
sorry, allowing what?
employees to raise concerns to them, serving like the ethics officer for the board. And so that's the idea. I think that I'm working with them to create a scope of services that will be good, but I just want to also make that, put that out there to you three commissioners to share your ideas with me. So that'll be on an agenda in January. And that's about it for my report for today.
Okay. Thank you. We have no financial report. Is there any requests for public comment? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session under Section 2C1. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved by Commissioner Cressy.
Seconded by Commissioner Brown.
Properly moved and seconded, and so at this point, we will go into executive session, and then when we come out of executive session, as far as I'm concerned, there will simply be a motion to adjourn. I don't see anything else on the agenda. So we are now in executive session. We're out of executive session and back in open session. And we will, unless there's any further business before the board, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved by Commissioner Brown.
And seconded by Commissioner Cressy.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
And Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Motion passes and we are adjourned. Thank you.